Association is actually going to use that mostly, right? That's sort of, they get first dibs on
Not
everything.
necessarily, because there are soccer fields up there.
I mean, but they have the
But
first.
there's gonna be a playground, there's gonna be.
Definitely get it.
Right. Right, but just like
So
baseball.
it's a little different.
They have
Well,
an
they
agreement.
have a field use agreement, just
They
like
have an agreement.
baseball has priority in our
Right.
fields. Same
Right,
difference.
but and we don't, and the parks or the supervisors up here or the Cecil Township doesn't charge baseball anything to use the parks, which I understand. It's everybody is from the community here it's not like it's outsiders using it. Where this thing with this miler is something different.
I
That's
would
why-
love to hear what we want for Cecil, what the residents want for Cecil Park. And I'll be brutally honest, 5:30 is a rough time for me to get there. My husband works downtown. It's almost impossible for me to make it all the way, or for him to make it all the way home and me to make it somewhere by 5:30. So that's why I don't attend. But I think that needs to be a separate issue. We can't attack Klinger Park
Well, I'll
because we
leave
want
Klinger Park
to.
completely out of it then, but on the same token, when you know that there's parks that have already been here, especially our flagship park right here, and you know yourself, you've been to the concession stand, you've been to the bathrooms down there.
I couldn't agree with you more.
There's things that should be on a priority list there, and if you're saying we have a general fund to use and we don't need grants, then write checks. Put it out for bid and write checks, let's get it fixed.
I couldn't agree with you more, but we can't, I think the point is, we can't attack Klinger Park because
Well, I'm
we
not
need it.
attacking Klinger Park anymore. I'm
Right, so-
not saying anything else about it. I'm not trying to attack Klinger Park. I'm
And I've
using
said
that
it to everyone.
as a
I mean,
comparison.
Right, with the exception of a few people, I've said it to everyone on the board. This is, one of my biggest priorities is I want to know everything that we want to do in the township before I make a decision on one thing. Because if you make a decision on one thing and then we're like, shoot, we totally missed the boat on this because we threw all of our money into this.
Well, I know when Mr. Bottle up here, he was making suggestions last year when he first got on and got hired about the bridges, about the concession stands, about several of these different things. I know he was making recommendations about this. I also, like I said, I'm involved in the township. I also heard about the different things about needing another roadmaster. Tommy Cassioli, you said we didn't need a roadmaster. This was years ago when we were down at the old township building. Before we moved to this township building, he said there was not going to be another roadmaster here. That was decided years ago. Now we're changing that. We have a paver that's broken down, and we're going to buy one that your mechanic said that they don't even want to start it and run it because
We're kind
the
of off the
motor's bad
subject.
on it.
We're off the subject.
We're doing stupid things.
Right.
And we get frustrated sitting out here because the supervisors think that we don't know what's going on, but most of the citizens who are concerned and live in this township, we are involved. Our kids, our grandkids are here. We do know what's going on, and we're not trying to get something that's benefiting me personally. We're looking at we're only voicing this opinion because we care
But there's
about
a
our
lot
township.
going in, and I'll be honest, I didn't fully understand it until I'm sitting up in this seat. I by no means am just up here making decisions on a whim, and I don't think any of the board members are either. And that's what I think gets lost a little bit. You think that, because you hear this from this person or this from this person, or you hear a little piece of it that you fully understand. I wouldn't make a decision without all the facts, and I don't think that anybody else here would either. So I think that that's where we're fighting with each other a lot before we fully
Well, if
understand.
you're very interested in all of the facts, why are you so against a forensic audit?
Right.
But that's,
Right.
Yes.
that's getting way off the subject now. Let's get back to what we were talking about.
The park's been messed up for 5 years, that's a fact. It hasn't been fixed in 5+ years, that's
Can
a
you give me
fact.
more than a month? I mean,
I'm not directing it just to you.
I'm not directing you, Jim.
All right, we're not getting anywhere
Bring it up
with
in
this.
public meeting,
Let's
bring it
go.
up in
Frank has a
public
comment
meeting.
here now.
Right, one comment. Bob, you said for years there was nothing done in the park. I volunteer my time. I put bathroom in, I put electric in, I put roofs on. And I didn't have to do that.
But
So
there
don't
were
come up with something like that.
But that was 30 years ago. 25 years ago.
Let's go back to what this motion is now.
Are we going to have a forensic audit?
2.5 hours, and he just walked out the door and discussed. And that's not saying too much for this board. That's not saying very much.
Okay, let's go back to this resolution. Resolution 30, number 2014. Do I have anybody making a motion here?
Are we going to have a forensic
I
audit?
understand that, what are you saying there?
Yeah.
I
Considering,
understand the language, and It's a vague statement.
What we're doing is, what Dan wrote up is considering starting the construction on it with the money as it becomes available. As the 20,000 comes, then we can go ahead and start on that and go as far as it would take till there's more money raised, Tom. It's not spending money from the township, it's taking and doing money as we need it.
But if there's volunteers though, are they gonna dip into the 20,000? I mean, you frankly wouldn't even have it yet.
We don't have it, but we can go dip in the 20,000.
That's free. We're not gonna start until that money comes in.
Look, maybe we can cut this short. I'm going to object to anything being done because I sent to John a number of questions that I have on it. I haven't heard from him yet. I've never
I did receive it, by the way, so she's correct. She did send it.
I do not have the exhibits yet, and anything about this, I'm going to object to anything being done at this meeting until all of my questions are answered by John.
And I just sent that to the board, so I sent around the email Elizabeth sent right before kickoff for the Super Bowl, so I was predisposed, so I could.
Yeah, but it was a bad Super Bowl.
So is there a motion?
The board looks like the Denver Broncos.
Okay, there's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I still don't know what your motion is.
The motion is to,
To allow work on the trail as the money comes in.
I think first thing, Tom, regardless of the money, since it is, a park or township property now, maybe that in and of itself needs some authority from the board that following Dan's proposal, let's assume it's free, that whatever work that's going to be undertaken, that you allow some construction activity on your property, consistent with Dan suggested.
For one thing, Joe Stewart is talking about piping and everything on the alley down there.
Joe Stewart.
Mr. Smith, is there a bond required to be put up on this before this happens, like everywhere else, or?
No, well, I think initially, and again, I'm kind of following along with everybody else here, but I think initially it's just the idea that this would be, look at any of our township property, if we wanted to say we're going to put a brick sidewalk or cut some trees down, typically the board would be involved in that decision. So here, we have an outline of a plan that's going to be undertaken. So I think the concept of putting that trail up is part of this vote, and actually following through with it beyond volunteer efforts. That's where Tom's hung up on. Where's the money going?
Well, also, what about the liability? If it's township property and a volunteer for one trail gets hurt and sues the township, it's not liable. They should be putting a bond up for one trail.
Well, we have volunteers at the park, and we have volunteers that do other things in the township. I'm not exactly sure. I know there's some big trees up there. I hope we're not falling any of those trees, but.
You didn't watch X-Men last night.
But yeah, so I think the concept of approving this trail up is part of this vote. And then I think that's what Andy, or whoever wrote this, contemplated about them and the money, as the money comes in, whether it has to go out to bid, or it may be subject to a future vote. I think it's just the idea that Dan's conceptual idea of how to get up there is what's before the board.
I may have no problems with this if and when all of my questions are answered.
Can you tell us?
No, I just sent you Mrs. Calvin's questions that she sent to me yesterday. So I did find her email. I thought she sent me the same document twice. I stood corrected and found it. So I emailed it all the board and Mr. Giusto.
I have a question.
Moved and seconded, we can take a vote.
There's a question for
Dan, direct this, can you give us a ballpark estimate of the construction cost for 1,800 feet, feet of walking trail? Off the top of your head, Charlie. I mean, what are you going to do, put slide, clear some trees, and put slide or
Clear
pave?
trees, there's grading, and there's the trail surface to put down.
What type of surface we talking? 2A limestone, asphalt?
It's going to probably be shot chipped.
Yeah, it'll be a,
Why should you vote on something, you just don't even know the price tag of it? We're saying as money's become available.
Dan, I believe
Is it something that you can just leave partially?
Pavilions and all that and everything.
I mean,
A trail to nowhere, you start it, you can't finish it?
You've got here that you have to get permits. I mean, if you issue a building permit, someone builds half a house and leaves it for 5 years as money comes in, I mean, you guys ain't gonna like that. I mean, is this something you can just leave sitting as money comes in, halfway done, per the permits?
It can be set up, in the woods down there.
Well, it-
So,
it-
I'm just asking
I
for
mean,
more.
it's more
You know?
than just, we're not just flying by the seat of our pants.
Oh,
There's-
yes, we are. This is an agreement.
Yeah, this is how, no, Mrs. County doesn't attend the meetings, she does not attend the meetings, I have been there. There are
Not
plans
even
in
know what the
place.
meats and bounds of it are. We don't have a description of it. There's nothing here. And you want to vote on it tonight. And you want to vote on something that you know nothing about, and that's every member of this board that votes on it. That's all I'm saying. I'm
I
not saying
disagree with you.
I'm not
We
saying
have-
at the end that I'm going to disagree with it. But you cannot, in good conscience,
And we can't keep
vote
doing
on
stuff
something that you
because
do
you
not
don't look at
know
your
about.
work.
Oh, I do my work. I do my work very well.
But, I mean,
We have a trail that has been laid out by our engineer already, and all we're asking is to be able to go ahead and start to do some work on that without actually putting out any bids at the moment either. Because if we do decide to go out and put it out to bids, then that way we'll have to be coming back to the board for that.
Do what you want, but anybody who votes for it bears the responsibility.
Is the problem, maybe this is to Chairman Castillo, is the problem pending receipt of all required permits? Because I think the first thing the board is looking to vote on is the conceptual drawing, where I didn't see it, Dan, but how they're going to take the trail up. So just the idea that that is the goal, to take the trail from the trail to the top. Putting everything else aside, because the board has to approve that concept. That would be first and foremost. I think within that concept is the idea that once that's okay and the board's okay with that, that Frank or whoever else may be involved in kind of either clearing or doing some work from a volunteer basis consistent with that idea. And then as you get money, to Frank's point, then you can sit down and say, okay, what are we going to go beyond just cutting this out? They just want to get started on it. So I think the pending receipt of all required, as you said, permits, maybe just needs to be out, because I think the first thing is approving Dan's, what Gateway did. Is that a vote that the board can take? Do we want to bring it from point A to point B?
We don't know what it is, where it is. We don't even know what property it's on. Did we get that additional 9 acres yet? Is it going to go through it?
No.
If we don't have the 9 acres, maybe that's where it should go. We
Elizabeth,
don't know what's going on.
I mean, this is a fully engineered plan. We put a lot of time and effort into this.
I believe you did, Dan, but I have nothing to work from. Nothing. I mean, nothing at all. I have a clearly drafted agreement that doesn't even say what the property is or where it is.
Sure.
The insurance is not good, nothing is good.
Everybody else requesting to do property has a
I think we need
PowerPoint,
to
you
make a
see it up
motion
there where it's
to
gonna
what you're
be.
saying, that we go ahead and
Yeah, just approve the land development, really.
the land development.
Yeah, I mean, that, you can do that.
Why can't it be done next month or the month after? Why are we rushing this through?
Now is the time to get in there and do stuff if you have the opportunity.
What, in the winter?
Winter time, when it snowed on it. When it snowed on it. Gotta get in there when it snowed on
Maximum
it.
settling of the ground for maximum destruction.
When it snowed on it. Wait for 6 more
Everybody
minutes.
has a copy.
Joe, say what you said again, let's go
Quit being-
What the board, I think, should be voting on is Gateway engineered some designs, bringing the trail up through, from the trail up through the park, down, is it the reserve?
It's just up to
So that's the game plan, I guess. It's sort of like when we voted on the park. This is what we want to do, and everyone's on board with this is what we want to do.